command. Yes. So I did a command in chat, exclamation MM, and you can join our group. It's free. It's just for bragging rights, just to play against us. I put one up there. I'm still thinking I might move some stuff around. But I thought it would be fun for anybody who's watching or listening to this. I'll also put the link in the YouTube video that I'll post tomorrow, hopefully before it closes, because I do know that on Tuesday there is some of those early round games that we will be breaking down as well. Let me also, I'm going to do a share screen and try something. Let me see if this works. We'll preview this, and then I go to a different screen over here, and then we're big, and we've got this thing up there. I think that works. All right. So I've taken away the sidebar, and I've put us over there so I can have a little bit of a bigger look at the bracket. And the plan of this was to do is I'm going to go down a section of the bracket real quick, just so people know the teams are, and then I'm going to let each one of you pick one in that section, a game that you want to talk about. So that way we don't have to go through all the games. If you have two that you really want to talk about, you can let me know, and I can extend it for a second one. But if everyone talked about every game, we would be here for another 3 hours. So
Right.
I just, I do have to try to figure a way to get this down to like an hour long segment, ideally. So that at least I think is the plan going for this. And we got Ryan here, who's a big NC State fan. I'm going to stop the share for a second and then go back over to it, because I do want to talk about that NC State thing real fast. There it is. And then we'll get into it. I just wanted to test to make sure that still worked, that I had created right before stream. So Ryan, 2 weeks ago we talked about you coming on this show, and we were like, NC State's not gonna probably have a whole lot to talk about. And I was like, yeah, probably, because they had a pretty good early part of the season and then a pretty terrible latter half. They found themselves in the 10 seed in the ACC tournament, and they had a very hard path, having to beat things like Duke, Virginia, right, and UNC in the last three in 3 consecutive days, to make it, no less make it to the final, but to win it. And just I found myself, I'm a diehard Tar Heel fan. I've rooted for them since I was 5 years old. So we're talking about,
Yeah.
34 years of being a Tar Heel fan.
Right.
But I found myself rooting for the Wolfpack, because I was like, what an incredible story here. I know that you're a fan. I knew you were going to come on the
Wait,
show.
wait, wait. Can I interrupt for a second? Were you really rooting for the Wolfpack in the
Yes,
championship?
I
No,
was.
no, I don't know if I don't know about
I
that.
was. Well, I kind of, I was rooting for them, but I wasn't going to be upset if they lost to my Tar Heels. We'll put it that way, right? So I was
All right.
hoping for it, because
Rooting after
I
the fact
knew
too.
that UNC was
Right,
going to be
exactly.
a 1 or a 2 seed, right? No matter what happened. And this is the Wolfpack's chance. And I don't know if they had lost the championship, if they would have made it. Like, they probably would have, but maybe not, right? It's,
No, they definitely wouldn't have made it. I think Ryan was right. Ryan broke that down in our pre-show. I don't think they'd have
yeah.
made it.
Yeah, they really didn't have the resume. I mean, if you think about it, the Pitt Panthers, who finished fourth in the conference, were not invited to the NCAA tournament. So, yeah, they would have been, NC State probably would have been in a similar standing to like Wake Forest, of like being considered, quote unquote, but not really being invited. So they had to win that game in order to go into it.
Talk about being a fan, and this is a run that you talk about earlier in, like, you weren't alive in '87, so you don't even know
Nope.
that run. And so talk about, you've been a lifelong fan. Family goes to NC State. What were your thoughts last week, as this was kind of unfolding?
Yeah, so I have seen a number of ACC tournaments, and long family history short, my dad grew up in Raleigh near, NC State, and ended up going to school there, and that's where he met my mom. So both went to the same university, so naturally their kids would become Wolfpack fans, and then my sister would go on to study there and meet her husband at NC State. So Like there's just it just runs so deep, and not just men's basketball, but men's football, men's baseball have not won a single conference championship even since 1992, which would have been men's baseball. So,
Wow.
like, it was like quite literally the longest streak of any Power Five school to not have a conference championship for that long, longest running. So, yeah, it was crazy, and I really did not allow myself to believe it was going to happen. I had hope, but I did not allow myself to believe it was happening because there had just been so many strange things over the years. My favorite incident is the only one I'll share because there's too many, but was they had a tournament run in the 2000s, and they were winning against Maryland, and one of the managers on NC State's team was like wiping something off the floor, and he got called for a technical. And so Maryland got 2 shots in the ball, and then they ended up like winning that game. And it was just like
That's
it was
brutal.
just like what? This is not our fault. Like it was so unfair.
That's
Um
so brutal. Yeah.
yeah. So there's been a lot of heartbreak, and the last time NC State made it to the championship in basketball was also against Carolina in 2007, and that was what I kept thinking about. Was like, this feels a lot like 2007. That team was also a 10 seed, but back then there weren't as many teams in the ACC, so there's only like 4 rounds to play.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, that team was also a 10 seed, and then gosh, who was? I think that was one of the years that I think Tyler Hansborough was on that team in 2007.
I think you're right.
Um,
Yeah. It
yeah.
was sorry, the Calgary just scored a goal. So if you see
Ooh.
my
Oh,
face,
yikes.
yeah, why I was a little upset there. I mean, it was a crazy slap shot blaster. Nothing lingering really could do about that. It was a clean face-off win to the point. He takes it, does a slap shot in its upper left corner. But it's makes it 4-2. There's still like I still have a bit of a cushion, but it's dwindling. And so it's 12:42 left in the third in that one on my YouTube TV feed that I'm watching. But yeah, it's such an incredible story. That overtime that bounce to get you to overtime was what made me believe that they could make a run at that. And that's the moment I was like, I'm gonna root for them, and I hope that they win this whole thing out because I would love to see them make the dance because of this shining moment, you know. So like, and so that was the moment, at least for me as an outsider, I had belief, but I don't know. You still thought you were gonna lose to UNC?
I think, well, what made me feel a little bit better was after that Virginia game, um, DJ Burns, um, who, if NC State makes a run, he is gonna be like one of those, just like everybody who's watching the tournament is gonna know who he is. Not very often you see a guy that's 275 pounds playing Division 1 college basketball. That is not an everyday occurrence, and the way that he plays is just he's just so skilled. Like he just can move so, like, he's very agile, and you wouldn't expect him to be, just because, because of how big he is. But he's so smooth, and he said after that game, the reporters like asked him, like, there's like a very physical game, and like, I know you didn't get some of those foul calls, and he said, I told myself, I said, you can either be in your feelings or you can go out and win this game. And so that to me was like, that's always the problem with playing a rival like Carolina, where it's very one sided and you really don't like them, is that you get in your feelings. Like, we, as NC State people, we get in our feelings when we go against
Yes.
Carolina. But he was like, I can either get my feelings or go out and win this game. And so that was where I thought, okay, they have a shot. But this was actually after I had a conversation with you, where I was like, and I actually had a conversation with Davey before the Virginia game. I was like, they're gonna beat Virginia, and then they're gonna break my heart by losing to Carolina in the championship game.
Yeah.
But that was kind of an interesting little nugget that made me think. Okay, they have a pretty they've got a very resilient attitude that has undone a lot of other teams in terms of just like something goes wrong and they get upset and then they can't recover from it, you know. Oh, Robbie, I think
No,
you muted
I
me.
know. I was calling my dog because I was trying to get her to come
Oh,
over.
sorry.
But no, it's fine. She decided to sleep on the other side of the couch. She's very cute. I gotta show her for just a second because I feel like everyone needs to see.
Spam
There.
the emotes if you got them.
Yeah, exactly. So, but yeah. Anyway, but I'm so happy for you to have this thing because in the end they got a number one seed anyway. So I feel like karma did me right. So I felt good about rooting for
There you
NC
go.
State. They ended up getting in the Charlotte bracket, no less. So I was like, that was the big thing. I was like, I didn't think they would get a number one seed where they get to play at Charlotte if they lost the championship game. Thought there'd be like some disadvantage for that, but they still got the advantage. So I'm like,
From
yeah,
from my
fine by me.
perspective, that was never in doubt. They were
Yeah.
always going to get
We
that
talked
number
about that
one
on our
seed in
pre-show.
Charlotte.
Yeah.
We actually did talk about that. Davey and I did before.
Yeah,
The
that's really funny. Yeah, yeah.
show.
So, Davey, who's your favorite college team? Do you have a team that you bleed for, like the
This
Wolfpack?
is okay. So Ryan asked me the same question in the pregame show. It is a hard question because I didn't go to either UCLA or USC. So I take USC. I never did answer Rand's question very well, so I will officially answer it here. Between the two, I would take USC if they're playing each other.
Mhm.
Um, but it's interesting because I work for the other school. So I can't be all in with that with other sports. I can do it with football, but other sports, I'm like, if UCLA wins, I'm good. I'm good with it. I'm like, yeah, that's good for them. They're obviously a great tradition. They've made some Final Four runs even recently, and I think they even made a championship game recently, if I remember correctly. But um, it's good stuff. Is that my team? I don't know. I tend to identify more with UCSB than I identify with either of them because I actually was there when I worked there for a little while.
Yeah.
So
Yeah,
I don't know. I don't have a huge lean if you're talking about Power Five, I'll say USC is my team officially, but um, I don't feel that strongly about it. I guess so. I'm happy. I'm happy to see SC do as well as they can in the tournament, but I'm also not beat up if they lose because I didn't go there.
yeah. That's kind of how I feel a little bit about UNC, but like Penn's never gonna make the dance. If they do, it's gonna be like a very
Yeah.
like they won the Ivy or something. But it's just. I don't know. It's happened. It happened a couple of times.
I,
We even
I,
played against Texas tough when I went to college there that one year, which was
yeah.
surprising. But
Like when UCSB wins the Big West tournament, that's huge. Like for me,
yeah,
because like that's a school I have connections to. Like I was there, I knew people who went there. I still know people who went there. Like there are people on Twitch who went there. Like it's wild. Like it's really interesting. Like how surprisingly connected people are to that school.
yeah. And
Or
Arun is a huge Villanova fan, but he also went to
mhm,
Villanova, so that makes a lot of
yeah,
sense. And so
yeah,
we've always had some internal rivalries because Villanova plays Penn a lot, and it was there's been some interesting battles through the years. It's kind of fun to go to college in Philly just because college basketball is such a diehard thing. Like it's the most important thing in that city. Like the games of the Palestra, it's such a small stadium that gets just packed and they split it in half and it's crazy because it's just like this battle back and forth in this really small old building and that's what I remember about college. So it's just weird because like it's such a different experience than watching like that is Division 1A, but like it's not the same as watching UNC. But I have the thing there, Ryan, that my parents met there and my grandfather went there. So like I, and
yeah.
I went there. But yeah, it's still, that is my school that I'll obviously root for, but it's not like a basketball school in the same way that a UNC. Which also, like, my aunt and uncle went to UNC, all my cousins went to UNC, so like I thought my choices were either I was going to go to UNC or Penn, and I applied to Penn early decision, and so I had to like
They're
withdraw my.
part of the Ivy League.
Yeah,
Am I remember correctly? Wow, you're an Ivy Leaguer.
yes, I am.
Look at that. How about that, folks?
Yeah, so I am.
Impressive.
One
I'm a
smart
nerdy
cookie.
kid. But yeah, no, I loved my time at Penn. It was a great school, and but that was actually always my dream. Talking about colleges and big sports, like my pipe dream was to go to see like an SEC football game, right? Because I never had that experience. We have the coolest building ever because the Eagles used to play there, but it doesn't matter because you can't fill Franklin Field. Like our entire student population would fill a third of our football stadium, so like there's no way we're ever gonna like fill it. It's just not possible. Like we only fill it for the Penn relays, and like and that's because everyone fills it for that. So I was so lucky to get to see A&M get to play, and get to see that with Johnny Football, and so like that was my dream come true, and like watching that sort of thing. And I have gotten to see a couple of UNC basketball games. But let's get into the bracket because we could talk just our love of college basketball the whole night. But we're gonna pick it up here. Let me see if I can get back to the screen. There we go. And so this part of the bracket is
AKA last year's Final Four, most
yeah.
likely.
I know, it's crazy.
UConn versus Stetson, FAU versus Northwestern, San Diego State versus UAB, Auburn versus Yale in this upper part of the bracket. And so I'll start off with you, Davey. Is there a certain game that sticks out in your mind in this one?
Can you do two?
Yeah, you can do it.
I have surprisingly good knowledge of the American Conference this year. Been watching a lot of AAC basketball. Like it wasn't a very exciting league. Like it's kind of amazing like how many close games you had, games that went to overtime. Like every team had a tight battle with everybody else. Every game in conference. It was really remarkable to see. So there's a couple of storylines from this conference you really want to point to. One is FAU, the team that, as Aaron mentioned, made the Final Four run last year. Really great run, and they've returned everybody. Like it's a really great team, and yet throughout the regular season they were really struggling. Like they did win their games, but they did not really put anybody away throughout the year. And I think it's a different ball game when people are ready for you. When you're sneaking up on teams and you're an underdog, that's one thing. But they had a little bit of a target on their back and win the conference, and I think teams really rose to the challenge of trying to play them. So it was a very, very interesting year. Now, I believe they still had a very good home record and everything else, but every game was a battle. And there was even one game where they kind of the other team got jobbed. I think it was maybe they were playing UAB, and they got a very favorable call to win the game. And I was like, dude, because like the guy was going to take some. But like I think the guy got fouled with like less than a second left, and they won the game on free throws. Like that was messed up. So all this to say, FAU is a little bit shakier than we were expecting this year. But Ryan made the point on a pre-show that like they still have all their guys and they could light it up for the challenge. But what if I told you that Northwestern might hang around this a little bit more than people expected? The only thing is I don't know a whole lot about them. I know a lot about the Big Ten, but I do think FAU might take them a little lightly, so we might expect a closer game than you think. I do think could go either way. You got a lot of 9-8 upsets in the tournament, but could be interesting. So we'll see what happens in that game. UAB is the team that won the conference this year. They had a very impressive finish to their year. In fact, they essentially blew away their opponent in the championship game of yesterday. I think it was trying to figure out who it was. I have it here on a tab somewhere. They beat. Oh yeah, they beat Temple by a lot. I think Temple kind of probably made a little bit of a miracle run to get there, but they put away South Florida in the AAC tournament. Like it's a really impressive team. Actually, really fun team to watch too. So this might be one of the quintessential 12 teams to upset a 5. San Diego State, yes, they made a great run to the Final Four last year. I mean, you can't take anything away from that. They wanted to, but I mean, that was a really amazing run. They did it with defense. It was really an impressive year. I still think they're pretty good, but personally, of the two, I think UAB has more to play for here. They're going to be hungrier. I think UAB is going to pull the upset here, folks. So I
Hmm.
am going to call for both teams to get upsets. I think Northwestern can win this game. I've not checked the spread. I'm assuming it's like 3 to 5 points. I don't think it's a lot. Because again, I think as good as but if FAU can survive this game, it will get extremely interesting in the second round. Because maybe, as Ryan says, maybe they're going to feel disrespected at that point because everyone's been talking them down, and that's true. Like I've seen it in the media too. Like I've been probably at the front of the line with it, but UConn versus FAU in the second round that'll be a game because I think both teams can score. Both teams, it'll be really interesting. We'll see. So if they do win, we'll have a very interesting second round. And I don't feel the same way with the UAB game. I think UAB will find a way. I just got to feel again. UAB has played so many close games, so has FAU. So that should help them in the tournament. They should be ready to go here. And the Mountain West is also a very good conference this year, but I think I trust the AAC more right now. So I'm going to take UAB and Northwestern for the two upsets.
Nice. All right, Ryan, what are your thoughts on this part of the bracket?
I don't think I have any upsets from what we can see here. You know, Auburn impressed me quite a bit. So I don't know. They could be a shocker to go on a deep run as far as like if we're getting further ahead. Um, and the only other thing I'll say is never underestimate a team being poo-pooed on by the media and other fans and stuff. There's kind of a meme that was going around that like NC State made their run because of Jim Boeheim, the former Syracuse coach, is now a commentator, and he's just like the biggest curmudgeon ever. Like he's so grumpy old man. And he was mad that they were like celebrating a good play in their first round game, and he was like, this is what he said. He said, "What are these guys celebrating? They haven't had anything to celebrate in a long time." And it was just like, and so then it was kind of like a thing that like they were kind of celebrating, and actually the thing he was questioning was them doing like the 3 goggles, and he thought, Jim Boeheim thought, that was something that was too much, like players shouldn't be doing that or whatever. But then it became a thing, like even the coach Kevin Keats, like after a press conference, was doing this, which made me think that they actually heard what he said about it and were kind of using it a little bit. But I also think it was kind of a overstated about how important that was. But yeah, don't underestimate a team that gets poo-pooed on, and it's a tough one. I have a soft spot for Northwestern because of our friend Jeffrey, and also one of my friends from college love Northwestern as well. But I also love those Hootie Hoos, the Fighting Owls. I don't think anybody else calls them that, but I call them the Hootie Hoos.
Start a new thing today. Arun, what are some of your thoughts on this part of the bracket?
I also went all chalk in this part of the bracket, and San Diego State, I only had them winning. UAB, I was considering UAB, and it was like kind of 50-50, and the tiebreaker was just San Diego State beat Gonzaga by 10 earlier in the season, but it's an even game. But I just have San Diego State, and this part of the bracket, it's chalk, so nothing really that interesting to contribute.
Yeah. All right, let's move on to the bottom part of this bracket right here. We got the BYU and how do you pronounce this, Davey? Is it
Duquesne?
Duquesne.
Yes.
Okay.
It's French.
BYU Duquesne. They got Illinois, Morehead State, Washington State, Drake, Iowa State, and South. Is it Dakota State?
Yep.
South Dakota State, yeah.
Okay.
The Summit League, I believe.
Interesting. All right, I'm going to start off. We're going to go in opposite direction to give everyone different, chance here. So we're going to start off with Arun, and this side of the bracket. What are your thoughts?
This side of the bracket, more upsets. I guess I have Duquesne going all the way to the Elite Eight. I don't know if I'm going to stick to that though. If I Illinois, in Duquesne, I thought was like a 50-50 game. That game will probably have to go back to, but I think they can beat BYU. I have to go double check, but I think the size of BYU is not. I think Duquesne has like a lot of seniors, and they close the season strong. And I don't know, like maybe they've been a little bit untested. And I also have Drake beating Washington State, but I do have Iowa State. I think I'm pretty chalky when it comes to the Elite Eight of Iowa State, I guess, winning this part of the bracket.
Yeah. Sorry, I'm just excited. Tom Wilson just scored an empty net goal. Which seals the deal for the Capitals. So it's nice. So finally, my curse of my podcast. A lot of games we watch live, they fall apart. So I'm happy that they're gonna get a win and 2 Ovi goals. He's now up there for tied for or up there for most we decided most road games with more than 1 goal, and also I think he's number 1 in that statistical category, and he's getting up there in 20-goal seasons. This is now his 19th, that's pretty crazy. Also, one of the most ever with 1 team. A lot of those other people didn't do it with 1. So. Anyway, so I just want to give a little scoring update. There still is 2 minutes left, but I will be surprised if the Flames come back down 3 now. I guess I'll go to Ryan. Your thoughts next.
Funny. It's almost like I don't know, Arun. I promise I didn't see your bracket before, but I didn't pick Duquesne to make a big run, but I did also pick them to win that first round. So it's like we kind of have like the exact same mentality, and Drake as well. Yeah, I feel bad for Washington State. The Cougars, just it's a rough time for their program with the way things are going with the Pac-12 and everything. But I think I think Drake's going to come out on top, and I also think Iowa State is the number 2 seed for a reason. And I think they are poised to really make it happen, like with a big run.
Sorry, this is wild. They went empty net again. I'm just like, I'm trying to see if Ovechkin's gonna get a hat trick now. I'm like, I was like, why would you go empty net down 3 goals? But anyway, it's just an interesting decision by the Flames. Davey, what are your thoughts on this side of the bracket?
Yeah, actually, Ryan made a really good point about Drake. Like, Drake's a very sneaky good team. You know what I mean? I think they're from the Missouri Valley Conference, and yeah, they've had some battles. All right. I don't trust most teams in the Pac-12 this year, so I think Drake is a better choice too. I actually looked at my bracket, actually adjusted it to reflect that, because I'm like, Ryan's right. I think Drake's just probably. I think they go in with a better head of steam. I'll admit I don't know a whole lot about Washington State, but the Pac-12 is pretty basic this year. Like, Arizona killed everybody. Colorado was awful. I can't even believe they're even in the tournament. They were so brutal on the road. Like, how are they even in the first 4? Like, what happened over there? Like, did they just make a run in the Pac-12 tournament? I didn't see it. Like, I don't believe that. Like, they were so bad this year on the road, and I guess they picked it up at the end or something, because they didn't look good when I was watching them. I was in the building for it, and they were playing UCLA. They could not score at all. They were terrible. Their offense stinks. I don't get it. Like, why are they in this tournament? It just, what's happening? So anyway, all this to say, I trust like 2 teams, maybe Oregon and definitely Arizona. Everybody else, they can take a hike. Like, I don't think anybody in the Pac-12 is going to go far this year, other than those 2. So them, I think we're going to have a really interesting situation with Morehead State, Illinois. This is interesting because I don't like Bruce Weber is a terrible coach. I'm just going to go put it down the record and say that. Like, he's awful. He does not win close games. He's bad at close games. He can't hold the lead. I mean, it was happening in the regular season too. I mean, they did win. I will give him a lot of credit for the Big Ten tournament. They did very well there. Took care of business. Even won some of these games fairly convincingly. I I think Purdue finally beat them in the championship game, which makes sense because the size advantage with ED, it only makes sense. Illinois is more of a jump shooting team anyway, so there's that. But I don't know. I just feel like you get vibes. I think Morehead State. I don't know a ton about Morehead State, but you know what? If for some reason they can get these open looks and they can hit their, I mean, I don't even know if they're a 3-point shooting team because you could have some teams like Texas Southern who don't shoot threes at all. It's like you be like, what? In today's NBA, in today's basketball, you're not shooting threes. But I don't know. Like I just get vibes with that one. I just don't. I feel like you could see a headline that says Morehead State upsets Illinois and shocks the world. I just feel like that could happen. I have no actual evidence or data for this one, but I'll never trust Illinois in a tournament game ever. Like the next big game they win in the tournament will be Ryan, we were talking about them earlier. I'm referring specifically to the Bruce Weber era of Illinois. So let me just be more specific about that because like when they were going in 2006 when they played your North Carolina, Robbie, I think that was a different coach. I think that was like, am I remembering correctly?
No,
Yeah.
it was Bruce Weber then.
It was Bruce Weber back then too. Oh man,
2000s.
Look at that. Okay.
2005 head coach. 2005 Illinois head coach.
Gotcha. So
yeah,
I don't forget about games like the one against Loyola Chicago. They didn't show up. That's gonna happen.
Yeah, Bruce Weber. Yeah, right.
Yeah. I don't trust this team. They might get it out of this weekend, but I would be more surprised than not if they did. I don't know who's going to beat them. Someone's going to beat them. I don't know. It could be Duquesne. It could be BYU. One of those teams is going to beat Illinois this weekend. That's my prediction.
Yeah, not a lot of love for Illinois. So
no.
I have to rethink my bracket because I thought I don't know.
I think the thing about it is though, I will say Illinois does get the best possible matchups out of this region or out of this specific part of the out of this first and second round section of the tournament. So I have to be fair. I think they probably are more likely than not to get out of there. Like just because I made my prediction doesn't mean it's going to happen. So I feel like where they're going to suddenly start to eat it is going to be in the next round when they get to the Sweet 16. I think that's when they're going to probably start losing. So we'll see. I have no comment on Iowa State. I do think they're great though. So, and do we even talk about the North Carolina game? Is there?
That's the next bracket. That's the whole.
Oh, okay, next bracket. Okay, never mind. Okay.
Sorry.
I think that's all. I don't know much about the Yale. Who's Yale playing? Like I didn't check that.
That was the Yale Auburn.
They're playing Auburn. Auburn's
that was.
I think Auburn will win that. Yeah. Auburn's pretty good.
All right, let's get down into this section here, and so we got North Carolina versus a play-in winner. We got Mississippi State versus Michigan State, St. Mary's versus Grand Canyon, Alabama versus Charleston. I don't even know what Grand Canyon is.
TCU, they're from Arizona. Like they're in the state of Arizona. Yeah. So,
but sure. I mean, I had North Carolina going through this part of the bracket, but I want to get your guys' thoughts on it. So I'm going to start off. I'm going to switch it up again and get Ryan's thoughts on this side of the bracket.
Yeah. So I mean, I think Howard is going to beat Wagner in the first four matchup there, and Carolina will probably be able to empty their bench if they so choose in that first round matchup.
So true.
Yeah. No disrespect to them.
We're not going to have a replay of Virginia from a couple of years ago.
I don't think.
No, we're saving that for Purdue.
Virginia's
Again,
got their own first four game to play, which I would like to talk about when we get to that moment.
Yeah.
But I'm always interested to see Michigan State. Tom Izzo's still around, and
it's wild that it could be Michigan State against North Carolina again, right? Because
And somebody pointed out that in every scenario, North Carolina has come out on top against Michigan State, even though they met so many times in the tournament.
Interesting.
And I don't think this time will be any different. I also think North Carolina is going to come out of this group. I think Alabama might have the best shot here to kind of get on a run, and maybe surprise North Carolina. There's definitely something that was interesting about the championship game is they didn't seem to adjust to NC State using a lot of like ball kind of screens where they would kind of do a lot of handoffs, and instead of like kind of going instead of trying to go like under and stay between the player and the basket, they were trying to go over and like disrupt the handoff that way, and it wasn't working. Not really sure why they. So anyway, so there are some interesting things. As good of a defensive team as they've been all season, that was kind of something in the championship game that made me like wonder where they just kind of, I don't know, just kind of distracted, because I feel like that's not the way that they played most of the season. I felt like they were a little better about making those adjustments. But anyway, so we'll see. I do think Carolina is probably running right through this region here. Maybe again Alabama is probably the team that has the best shot.
I'm gonna go to Davey next. What are your thoughts?
Okay, I spent too much time in the previous segment, so I'll make it quick.
No,
Yeah, I think St. Mary's will probably take care of Grand Canyon, but it's interesting because when you don't have that ability, when you don't have that kind of when you don't have a great offense, it does kind of leave you vulnerable if you're not hitting your spot. So it wouldn't be the most surprised if Grand Canyon if GCU did win, but I still think St. Mary's is like a program that's been there before, done it before. So I feel like of the two, they'll probably win. I'd probably pick Michigan State. I don't have a whole lot of explanation there. I just, it's hard. It's kind of a close matchup if you think about it. Like, I don't really know. They're both kind of like this, having the same kind of season. Mississippi State too. So like, I don't know. And then I agree with Ryan's point about Bama. Bama is interesting because they have a team that when they are on, when they can shoot the three, when they're hitting their open shots, they're going to score like 100 points. Like, they are that kind of team. But in the neutral court, that's hard to do consistently. And so I think they need to do just enough to beat Charleston. I think they will. But you can see a scenario where they're just not hitting anything, and that's going to make them very vulnerable. So we'll see. But I do think they'll win. And it's kind of the same scenario. Like, I would say that a head-to-head matchup between Carolina and Bama, that's all Carolina. There's one big difference between the two, and I think it's the ability for people to get inside, and Carolina can definitely do that. Like, Baycott's often been very good and good with the glass. So, this is Carolina's bracket. I mean, granted, we didn't look at the bottom half of this, but of this group, I think this is Carolina's region to lose. There's no doubt. Like, this is looking. I think they'll do pretty well in the first weekend.
well, especially because they're in Charlotte. Like, it's like they're gonna have so many fans. Like, I don't know. Like, it's gonna.
I mean, correct, but sometimes that doesn't work out. I think Duke might have had a couple years where they had that and they lost anyway. But generally speaking, I think that's a very favorable situation. So yeah,
He was
I'm with
joking that Alabama and Charleston's teams could take the same charter.
you.
So close to each other.
That's great.
Yeah, that's true. All right, Arun, what are your thoughts on this part of the bracket?
Yeah, I also have North Carolina winning this part of the bracket. Only slight difference, I guess. I have St. Mary's playing North Carolina. I almost picked St. Mary's beating North Carolina, but then I had to go a dose of reality and just pick North Carolina.
The Gales.
Alabama. I guess I'll have to revisit Alabama and St. Mary's. That was like also a close matchup, and yeah, nothing really. I guess Mississippi State and Michigan State. I was like, that's a 50-50 game, but then just because of Tom Izzo, I just picked Michigan State to win that game.
Yeah, that makes sense. So for me, I'm kind of happy that North Carolina lost to NC State. They kind of got it maybe out of their system, which could help them maybe on a run, where like they don't go in as cocky and they know that there's still work to be done, which I think sometimes that actually benefits a team versus us winning because they didn't need to win it. Also, they got the spot that they were probably. I don't think that the win or loss affected where they ended up on this bracket. So, um, I, we'll see if it pans out that way. I actually have them going on a big run, this year because of that. But maybe that's not the case. But we'll see. I'm hoping that was the bad game kind of out of their system in the situation. Um, let's go to the bottom part of this bracket here. I got Clemson, New Mexico, Baylor, Colgate, Dayton, Nevada, Arizona versus LBSU. So I'm gonna start. We're gonna go in opposite order. So we'll start off with Ryan. What are your thoughts on this side?
Long Beach State University. Do you all know this story about Long Beach State? I
I,
guess I
I,
can.
I
Yeah,
do. I do not.
but just I don't know. I just think it's one of the best stories of this tournament. Is before they had their conference tournament, administration met with their head coach and they decided they would part ways. And then they won their first game of the tournament and they won their entire tournament. So now this coach is fired, but he's still coaching them in the tournament.
That's
So,
That's a
wild.
trip. That's a trip.
I don't think it has ever happened before and probably will never happen again.
I thought you meant they fired him before, but he still stayed on and coached them, even though he's a lame duck coach.
It's like he's just finishing out the year.
That's actually kind of good for him because now, like, if he actually goes on a run here, like that ups his value for
Right.
where he's going to go next.
Yeah,
So
yeah, for
I,
sure.
I,
So
I don't.
yeah,
That's an interesting evaluation because it's like, is it a referendum on the coach that they played so well, knowing that he's gonna leave? You know what I mean? Like, or I
I don't
don't
know
know.
the whole story, so that
Yeah,
is a good point.
that's an interesting one.
I just thought just the whole fact that he's like he's lost his job, but he's still coaching is really funny.
that is
So,
wild.
so
Yeah.
anyway, and I unfortunately don't think he'll be able to improve his stock all that much going against Arizona. I mean, hey, if he beat
Imagine
Arizona,
though, that would be hilarious.
that would be amazing. I don't think it's gonna happen though.
I think it would be a bigger upset than the Miracle on Ice if that happened.
I
Legit.
will. The only other thing I'm gonna say is, I would be shocked if, honestly, would be less shocked if Baylor was the highest seed standing than if they get knocked out before that Elite Eight matchup or Sweet 16 matchup with Arizona. Because I think Baylor I think Baylor is just a class above all the other teams that are in their little pod. Whereas Arizona, I feel like the winner of Dayton and Nevada, as good as Arizona has been, I still think Dayton and Nevada both have decent teams that could challenge them. I think the Flyers are going to be the team that can challenge Arizona.
Interesting.
Hmm.
All right, we're gonna go to Davey next.
Well, I mean, I can see the case. Probably could see the case with Dayton, yeah, but it's just interesting. I've been watching Arizona most of this year too, and like every time you think, well, this is going to be a tough game, this is going to be a tough game, then they went by 30. Like I haven't really had a real. Now it's interesting because Arizona in the Pac-12 tournament, like I don't believe they won. I mean, let me see if they actually won the
Nope.
Pac-12 tournament. I don't think they did, right?
None
Yeah.
of the top seeds won their conference tournament this year.
Yeah, look at that. So, remember the other team I said that I trusted in the Pac-12 though, Ryan? I said it. Oregon is the other team. I
Mhm.
just Dana Altman in a big spot is a very very good play, and I don't know. I think Oregon's going to have a little bit of a road there. We'll get to that later, but yeah, I guess I would. I guess that is a fair point. Like, I don't know. We'll see. I do think you're right about Baylor. I remember they played. Who was it? Kansas. They beat them last
Yeah.
meeting. They had it over in their home court. So it's a very tough team. I think you could see Baylor come out of this. You could see Baylor come out of here rather than Arizona. I'm gonna take Arizona, but at the same time, it's like I wouldn't be. I think you could go either way with that. So yeah. Last thing, I'll just quickly mention Clemson. Clemson has really had a lot of interesting games this year. They've played everybody tough, it seems like. And one thing with them is that watch out if they have a big lead in a game because they're pretty bad at holding leads. So this could be any game where they were up by 10 or something that could end up being a nail biter in the end. So we'll see how they do against New Mexico.
Yeah. It'll be interesting to see for sure. All right. Arun, your thoughts on this bracket?
Yeah, I guess I have New Mexico beating Clemson, but I have Baylor beating New Mexico. I almost wanted to pick New Mexico, but I couldn't do it. And then between Dayton and Nevada, I had Nevada winning, but it was like 50-50 on that, so I might change back to Dayton. But in Arizona winning this part of the bracket, so kind of chalky. So I guess Arizona versus Baylor in the Elite Eight.
Yeah.
Or yeah, or Sweet 16. Sorry, whatever it is. I don't know.
I want to give a quick little shout out. We've had a lot of people commenting on our Facebook feed, includes C4, who's very excited about that win for the Caps, as am I. A really huge road trip for them where they were kind of out of it before it started, and just really big to get that win. So thank you for tuning in. And we've had a lot of people writing some really nice things over there. So shout out to Tavon Fennell, another podcaster who inspired me back in the day, and Kevin, who was on earlier, saying he had a lot of fun, and Troy Evans. And so I really appreciate everyone for Facebook. We really started over there, and so I'm happy that we still have an audience that tunes in and is a part of it, as I am about our Twitch audience. And so it's been cool to do both. There has been some thoughts of mine to doing a simul stream and adding Kick to the mix, but I'm not convinced I can follow a third chat. But so like I haven't made that decision yet, but I have a lot of friends who have been trying on Kick to lure me over, and so we'll see in season 9 what I end up doing. But Twitch will always be the number one spot right now for me. But I am happy that I can still communicate with people over there, since that's where I met so many of the Caps people, and it's such an important part of the fan base. So I just want to give a little bit of a shout out to some of the people over there. I know I haven't been talking to them as much throughout this night.
Before we go to Ryan, I did want to ask Ryan a question. I think he'd have a really good perspective on it. Clemson has had some really, really wild wins and wild losses. Like they went out and beat Carolina on their home court, which is like the first time in their entire basketball program history that they did such a thing. That was back in February. Do you see Clemson as the kind of team that could that could beat anybody, but also the kind of team that could lose anybody? Because we've seen both this year.
Yeah, that's like kind of like, I think if again, like they just have not been consistent. You don't know what you're gonna get from them, and I don't think they're gonna figure it out. During this tournament, like I just don't see that happening for them. So I would not be shocked to see New Mexico bounce them. I have to say again, I feel like Baylor is just a more impressive team than anybody else in that region in that pod, I guess you could say. And so yeah, I don't give Clemson much of a shot to get out of the first weekend, but we'll see. I think the interesting thing, I haven't watched as much with the other conferences, but with the ACC, particularly in the tournament, they're letting them play. So like teams, I feel like the NCAA tournament might be a little bit more of the same, where the officiating, the whistling the foul calling is a little bit more spread out, a little bit more lenient. We'll see. Every officiating crew is different though, but if that happens, maybe Clemson will be ready for that, because it's just felt like basketball has gotten so much more physical in the ACC than it has been in the past. I mean, I remember when Tyler Hansborough set a free throw record by running into every defender and getting a blocking foul called against him anyway.
I love this.
I'm sorry.
Fair, but like it was effective. So
It was effective. I honestly, he might be credited with changing some of the way that they would officiate those games because it was like a cheat code. It was like he would draw the
they couldn't stop
contact.
him.
Yeah,
Yeah.
he would draw the contact, and if he missed the shot, he was still going to the line where he was pretty good at shooting free throws. And so, like, yeah, it was brutal. But yeah, anyway, I'm sorry.
Or awesome, depending on
that,
your perspective.
that
But
was a long, that was a long tangent. Sorry about that to answer Davey's question, but Clemson
yeah, but
probably not a good bet. Probably not.
Yeah, I think that's fair. I'm with the Rune too. Like I think New Mexico is a really live dog here. Like I think you could see it go either way here. But it's funny because if they do win, I could see Clemson being a live dog against Baylor. It's weird. Like you just never know. You know, like
Yeah.
I do. I mean, it would be crazy, but you know,
Crazy
stranger things have happened.
well, part of the
Yeah.
brackets, all those teams are pretty evenly matched, so you don't know what's gonna happen. All right, so we gotta go all the way to the other side of the bracket now. The part of the bracket, the only part of the bracket that my wife cares about. So we've got Houston
For how
Longwood.
long?
Yeah, Nebraska, Texas A&M. And it sucks because they were doing so well in their tournament game. They were actually up double digits in their game, I believe, and then they ended up falling in that last game for them. So that was a tough matchup in the SEC tournament for them because Liz was watching most of it, and they were winning a lot of the game that she was watching.
Yeah.
So
They took down Tennessee, right?
I think that's right.
Texas A&M did.
Yeah, I know they
So,
took
yeah.
out somebody. So we got Wisconsin's James Madison and Duke, Vermont. So it's the one alliance that Ryan and I have is our hatred of Duke. So we'll root against them.
We will all join in on that one.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I'm really crazy as well. So we got we'll be rooting big time Vermont fans. But I don't. It's weird though, because Duke seems very susceptible to like weird things happening to them in the tournament. Like I don't think they're gonna lose this game, but I I don't know. I don't see them making a big run in this tournament. But I'll start off with we're gonna go in reverse order. So I'll start with Arun and get his thoughts on this part of the bracket.
Yeah, I guess I have Houston being chalky getting to this part of the bracket, and I entertained the idea of James Madison beating Duke, but I couldn't do it. But I do have Houston beating Duke. Yeah, and Vermont, even that I wanted to kind of pick Vermont, but I believe Vermont they made a run kind of, so I think Duke has a little bit too much size, and Nebraska and Texas A&M, I picked Texas A&M to win. And somebody made the joke that Longwood could beat Houston because they have a phalanx like team name, but I think Houston's probably going to beat Longwood.
Yeah, I think so. Davey, what
like Fairleigh Dickinson was like the last one to beat Purdue or something, and there have been 3 other ones, but I don't think it's going to happen.
Yeah. So, Davey, what are your thoughts on this part of the bracket?
There are a couple of really interesting dynamics I'm looking at here. First of all, I think it was Mississippi State who beat Tennessee in the SEC tournament, which for me it was very satisfying because I just never trust Rick Barnes in a big game anyways. That's another one of those teams I just have practically no trust in at all. So, but having said that, they have that kid Connective who's very, very good. So, they are still a pretty good team. So we'll see. First of all, my condolences to, or not my condolences, but my sympathies to the people of Longwood. That is going to be a very ugly day. Like, it isn't even going to be a high score. I mean, that's going to be sad. Like, that's probably that could be the most lopsided game of the entire first round. So we'll see. Yeah, Wisconsin is going to be a very, very tricky situation. I would not take them in this game either. I would take James Madison. The basic reason is simple. Wisconsin has one of the lowest number of 3-point attempts in the entire sport. Understandably enough, NC State's like right behind them. I didn't even notice that. Like, that's interesting. I didn't realize that they took so few threes, but so Could that be a problem if James Madison happened to get some open looks and hit them late? I think so. Wisconsin's offense is okay; it's fine, but it is strange if you don't have if you don't have that much of a presence at the 3-point line, that could come back to get you in a game like this, especially if you fall behind. So I'm keeping an eye on that one. I don't know. It's interesting. I think Duke will beat Vermont. I don't want to get crazy. Like I would love to see it, but I mean Duke's already had some pretty bad early round upsets over the years, so I'll just remember that. But Vermont is probably not going to do much against Duke.
Right. All right, and I'll go to Ryan next. What are your thoughts on this side?
Well, I am having a slightly bold take here. I think the Dukes are going to beat Duke. We'll see. I mean, it is a bold take, obviously. I just have not seen. I've seen quite a bit of Duke, obviously, and it is interesting to me how like Filipowski obviously drives that bus for them. He is a monster to deal with. But they're not as stingy defensively as you might expect a Duke team to be. And sometimes it seems like Filipowski, in the times where Duke has struggled, like he has been kind of all by himself. And it's like, who else is going to step up and score? You know, so yeah, I'm not sold on Duke being built for a long tournament run. They're obviously still favored to get out of that group. I'm also, again, Wisconsin, I'm not very sold on what they'll do. I know they had a great tournament run. But yeah, like Davey was mentioning that James Madison can hit some outside shots, and that can be a big part of the magic, the madness of March, is you get hot hitting those shots from outside, and especially if your defense isn't up to the challenge of contesting those shots, then it could be a early exit, surprise exit for you. So that's my upset there. Kind of chalky on the other side of things. Although Texas A&M, I had to go back. I was like, who did they beat? It was Kentucky.
Yeah, it was Kentucky. I was gonna say, yeah.
So Texas A&M, I do believe are also gonna advance against Nebraska. Don't have enough confidence to say that they're gonna knock off Houston, but I do think it will be an interesting one to see, because obviously Kentucky has just amazing athletic talent. So the fact that Texas A&M could put them in their place, like, might mean they can give Houston a bit of a challenge. So we'll see.
Yeah, I am picking the Aggies. I am picking Wisconsin over James Madison just because they're the only ones I think that could beat Duke. I just don't see James Madison beating Duke. But so I'm gonna probably pick Wisconsin to win that just because I want to knock Duke out of my bracket. But yeah, hopefully.
Robbie, if you don't mind me interrupting, I'm kind of wondering if James Madison might actually have a better chance to beat Duke. It's weird because, like I said, I mean the lack of 3-point shooting from Wisconsin, that I don't know how that's going to play out, but it'll be interesting. Anyway,
they also did beat Michigan State. It was rarely early in the season, but they did beat Michigan State too. James Madison.
Wow, interesting.
Interesting.
Yeah, it's interesting because like I don't know. It almost seems like Vermont might have the best chance to beat Duke but I don't know. This is. I think we're all like really hoping for something to happen here, but maybe Duke's just too good. I don't know.
Yeah, I wanted to talk myself, and I was like, I'm rooting against Duke, so I was like, maybe I'm just playing Duke, and then I'll be happy if Duke loses. That'll be my reward, not being right.
Yeah, my dad always tells me to bet against what I want to have happen, so I should have Duke go all the way, so that way they go out. So
I
But
think sports wagering just became legal in North Carolina, like right before the tournament
oh
started.
wow.
And
Oh, it's
so
huge.
there were so many NC State fans that were betting against NC State, like hedging against NC State, so
Yeah.
that they could at least get some money if things didn't go right. But it almost became like a superstition of like, because NC State is 5-0 against the spread since they've started that.
Wow.
So
That's
that's
wild.
a if you're watching the money line for NC State, like they've been undefeated against it. So take
Hmm.
that for what it's worth.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
All right, let's get into this side of the bracket. Texas Tech, NC State, which I know somebody who's going to want to talk about that one. We got Kentucky, Oakland. We got Florida versus the winner of the BSU, Colorado. Is that right, Colorado? Yeah, I think that is. And then Marquette and Western Kentucky. It's always weird that it's not like once upon a time it was like the 16 seeds got all the play-ins, and now there's like 10 seeds and other ones, and so it's kind of wild that like you win a playing game and you're not like slotted at the bottom of a bracket per se. I mean, it's still a 10-7 game, but it's a lot closer than, a 16-1 or whatever. So I just think that it's an interesting dynamic with what they've done with the first four now. We got Marquette versus Western Kentucky as the last one. And since NC State's on this bracket, I'm going to let Ryan start this round off.
Yeah, seeing Kentucky come up in that number 3 spot was upsetting. Would rather see any other 3 seed in that spot. Um, just because of I mean, they've got athletic freaks, both sides and everything. Um, although it is just so funny to see and interesting to see how teams decide to handle DJ Burns, because he's just able to create space for himself, and he's just so difficult. Just teams don't have that experience, like, of going up against a guy that's 275 pounds. Like, you just you don't play against that every day, so it is something that can throw you off. But the athletic freaks of Kentucky is just like, I don't know, like my mind says it's kind of a nightmare matchup for them. Texas Tech, not quite as athletic as Kentucky. And I forgot to look into again their free throw shooting, but I do think NC State is going to be the 11/6 in this case. They just they're pretty confident. Obviously, they're comfortable now. Like, after having won 5 straight games, and honestly, before the season started, I thought this team was a tournament team, but a bunch of different things happened that we don't have to get into. So, like, talent wise, like, I always saw them as being talented, and Oakland. I'm sorry, I mean, I really think Kentucky might be, again, the 3 seed that's like got, like, I think the best chance to, like, make a big run here out of any of the 3 seeds. So it's like, if NC State can survive Kentucky, which is what I hope for, like, there's no reason they couldn't keep going. Yeah, so that's what I got.
Yeah, I think that NC State's going to beat Texas Tech, but lose to Kentucky. At least that's what I got on my side of the bracket. And Davey, what are some of your thoughts?
Yeah, I agree with both of those. I mean, Kentucky's a very, I typically look at Kentucky as being that team that could either make it all the way to the championship round or they're going to lose very, very early. We've seen both out of this era of Kentucky basketball. So I don't know. Well, I will take Kentucky. I will take NC State. I was doing some research in Colorado while everybody was doing that. Everybody was recapping the earlier games. I'm seeing that Colorado went on a hell of a run. Like right after that game I went to against UCLA, they have won a lot. It is interesting, and suddenly they are within the top 25 of the Ken Palm rankings. I'm like, wow, this team must have transformed or something. So in the days since I was paying attention to them, like I'm shocked. So, part one: are they going to beat Boise State in their game? Well, if you look at the like how they're recruiting their players and how like which who might have better talent player by player, probably Colorado wins that game. So I think if you picked between the two, you're probably seeing that. I would still take Florida though over either of these two teams. Florida is just a really good athletic team. You know, like pretty good length. I think they've played a lot of teams tough too this year. So I'm probably gonna go with Florida here. Marquette, it for a team that plays such horrible defense, I just don't know how far a team like that can actually go. So they better. I mean, they ought to win the game against Western Kentucky, but who knows? That's all I got.
Yeah. All right, Arun, your take on this side of the bracket.
Yeah, I've read Shepherd and Kentucky winning this part of the bracket. This was maybe this part for just picking this far for Kentucky was the easiest for me. NC State and Texas Tech, I have that as like a 50-50 game. Although NC State, I think NC State, I guess I have them winning, even though tournament winners on the end of the season kind of make me nervous because I've kind of overestimated them in the past. But I guess I have NC State winning, and then it's kind of chalky for the rest of the bracket. Marquette in Florida, and yeah. So yeah, Kentucky. I kind of think they're gonna go have a deep run because Reed Shepard is kind of the play. He's not like I don't know. He won't like miss free throws. I guess at the end of the game, like a lot of these Kentucky players, and they have a seniors, and they seem to be a well balanced team. But you never know with Kentucky because they've had some weird tournament losses. But I have them going far.
Yeah, I also had them going far, especially like out of the South bracket. Like if they came out of it and then, against a Houston, I still have Houston winning it, but like I still think that they could get, pretty far into this here. Let's go to the bottom side. We'll do this section again. Sorry, I was realizing that part of it was getting cut off. Zoom out just a little bit for Twitch. I know we see more than is on there. But yeah, so this one's got Purdue. Who's the 16 matchup, Davey, in this?
Looks like Montana State versus. Let's see who that
Grambling.
other team is. Who was
Graham.
that? Let's see. Grambling, I think, is the other team. Yeah. Wow,
Yes,
that's
sir.
swag team. Interesting.
Yep,
Things are good
from
stuff.
the SWAC. Yep.
Yeah.
Utah
Um,
State, TCU got Gonzaga, McNessie. I don't even know that school. What is
McNeese
that?
State.
They're in Louisiana, down by the bayou.
No.
There's actually, I was watching a highlight of theirs, and there was like several comments like, LSU fan here, they're better than us by a lot.
Wow. That's wild.
Honestly,
And then Kansas versus Samford. So an interesting lineup. We'll start off with Arun. What is your take on this part of the bracket?
I'm a little bit nervous about Kansas because they've had a couple of big losses to close the season, a couple 20-point losses. So right now, I have them losing to Gonzaga in the round of 32. Then I had I believe I had Utah State winning, and then Purdue. I guess I have coming out of this region, even though they were upset last year. I think they're kind of like maybe they'll be like Virginia and kind of redeem themselves a little bit, and maybe not win the championship, but I have them making it out of this part of the region.
Yeah. All right, Davey, you're next.
well, I think the Purdue idea has a lot of legs. But I would take exception to it on the grounds that I think of the two. I mean, Virginia had always had a really great defense. Like the thing with Tony Bennett, he has that defense always running really really well a lot of the time. So I think that's the difference for me. I don't see the same level of defense with Purdue. I am not a big Zach Edey guy. I will be on the record to saying that I just don't think he doesn't do much for me. I don't think he's that great a player at all, and he's not athletic, and he's not really that great a scorer. Like I just don't see the. I mean, I mean, I know I might even know how much of an opinion. I mean, I don't even know how like. I don't know if that's even a controversial opinion. I think people kind of been. Some people have been lukewarm with him. And I say that because I think as rough as Kansas is for all the ups and downs that Kansas has had, and there's definitely been that this year, they've been pretty bad against the spread. I mean, just what that means is that they haven't really been great at like the point differential this year. And the biggest stats that they've had is their home record. Their home record always is so great every year. What are you going to do when you're on a neutral site? That's a good question. I mean, they like I mentioned earlier, they didn't beat Baylor in that big game. And as Arun mentioned, they've also lost some pretty bad games to end the year. But it does look like a really talented team. I, Gonzaga did do a really good job in the West in the WCC tournament. Although I think they lost.
They lost
to
St. Mary's, yeah.
St. Mary's, right? Yeah. So not really that great a team. At least not up to the normal level of Gonzaga basketball. So I'm not really big on them either. So a couple things I think I see here. I think I see TCU beating Purdue in the second round. That's what it might feel. But on the other hand, TCU really I don't have the most confidence in that. But it just kind of says more for me. It's more about Purdue. I just don't think they're that good. Like they don't have any depth beyond Edey anyway. Like I mean, who's like their next best player? And I'm sure they have good players, but I'm just like it just doesn't seem like that exciting a team to me. They play very well at home, no doubt, but not so great on the road. So in the neutral site, I think they're okay. I don't think. But Arun, you might still be right because you're right about Kansas. Like I don't know what to do with them. That's a tough call. So we'll see. I think I would pick Kansas personally, but I also could see them losing early. So it's a tough call.
Yeah, I had Kansas beating Purdue in mind, but I don't necessarily know how strongly I feel about that. But what are you, Ryan? What are your thoughts?
I have the McNeese State Cowboys taking down Gonzaga.
Ooh.
They haven't played a lot of good teams.
Yeah.
McNeese hasn't, but I'm telling you, they're quick and they're not super big, but they're not small either on the inside. So, yeah, I think there's a potential upset there. And yeah, kind of like you guys, I don't know how to feel about Purdue. You know, we know what happened last time. Early Dickinson, anybody? Um, and I don't know. Kansas, I think, might be the one that advances out of this whole group here.
Yeah, for sure. All right, let's get to the last part of the bracket. So we got South Carolina, Oregon. We got Creighton versus Akron. We got Texas versus the winner of its UVA and who are they playing?
Colorado State, I think.
Colorado State.
The Rams.
That's wild that UVA has to play on a play-in game. But Tennessee versus St. Peter's is the last part of that. I'm gonna let Ryan give his thoughts on this side of the bracket first.
The Peacocks are probably not going to beat Tennessee. I don't think we're going to see. I loved that run that they had years ago. It was super fun to watch them. But they came out of nowhere. But I don't think. I think Tennessee's. Yeah, I actually. I'll be interested to see what Davey says about Oregon and South Carolina. I don't know how I feel about that matchup. I wanted to talk about Virginia. they have a system that everybody by now is kind of familiar with the way that they play, very intentionally slowing the game down. And the problem is that because they slow the game down, a lot of their games are close. And they are a poor free throw shooting team. That was what allowed NC State ultimately to come back and have a miracle shot to tie the game up. And I don't even know if they're going to beat Colorado State, to be perfectly honest with you. I think it'll be likely a Texas versus Tennessee matchup. And I think the Akron Zips are gonna zip right back to Akron. I don't think they're gonna stick around. But I'm actually very interested in the winner of South Carolina and Oregon. Those are two teams that I feel like have the ability to play with anybody. So we'll see. I mean, I still haven't decided what to do here, but Creighton could be in trouble in that second round matchup.
For sure. We'll go to you next, Davey.
Yeah, and I appreciate the segue. I love Oregon. Like South Carolina has been a really frustrating team to watch most of the year. Because they have been in a lot of games, but then they just fall short a lot of the time. But they did have some nice wins against well, let's see. Who they win what was a key win for them? Actually, I'm struggling. Oh, they beat Florida. Okay, they beat Florida. Okay, that's a good win. That's a solid win. Did they beat a couple other tournament teams? They beat Mississippi State. Oh no, either. They did beat Texas A&M on the road in the last. So that was a pretty good win. They beat Georgia on the road, so that's a pretty good win too. And they beat Tennessee on the road, so that's a pretty good. That's a very good win. They beat Kentucky. So yeah, you know what? they've had the ups to go with the downs. But I still think it's gonna. I just gotta again. I think Oregon, even though it has a very strange ending to the regular season in their tournament, it's certainly not what I was expecting. But I still think I'm going to give them a shot here. So I'm going to take Oregon in that matchup. But definitely it could go.
I'm sorry. I have to point out something very interesting about this region. This region is for the birds. We got the Gamecocks, the Ducks, the Blue Jays, and the Peacocks.
Oh, I love that. Yeah. Creighton and the Blue Jays. Yeah. So wouldn't you love to see a Creighton Oregon second round Ducks versus Blue Jays? Like what? Think of the colors that are going to be on display for that matchup. It'd be amazing. It'd be bright. Let me finish. I'm sorry, I didn't finish what I was going with. So yeah, I got Creighton. That Texas game's interesting. I don't know. I guess I'll take Texas. I'll take Tennessee too.
Yeah, well, Arun, what are your thoughts?
I also have Oregon beating South Carolina. I have the winner, Virginia, and Colorado State beating Texas for some reason. I don't know why. Tennessee, I guess, to get to the Sweet 16, but I'm leaning towards Creighton, but I might be talked out of it just because Creighton, one of those teams that can beat anybody, but they feel like they could also lose to anybody, kind of thing. So it like kind of make me nervous. So I'm for now, I have Creighton winning, but I'm gonna have to sleep on it.
Yeah,
I agree with that because like Creighton really only plays one way. You know, they don't really adapt their game to scenarios. They're just shooting. They're just launching, and I just think it would be it has a lot of ceiling and it has a lot of floor too. So it's just that'll be a very. You're right. That's tough for me to tell which way that will go.
yeah, it's a tough part of the bracket. I'm kind of somewhat lost. I just don't really know how some of these games are going to go. I think this might be one of the toughest parts to pick right here, at least for me. because I want to see Tennessee goes far, but they could be upset pretty easily. I don't know. My gut was to pick Tennessee to go far, but I still am unsure. So even after this conversation, I'm not sure where I'm going to go with that. But
I still didn't make a pick between the other USC and Oregon. I just kind of like left it open ended. It's like whoever wins could challenge Creighton, but I still think Creighton's gonna get out of that group. But
Probably. I'm bummed that Providence didn't make the tournament though. Like I think they had their moments, like it's still a tough they needed a couple more wins, I think. And that's the shame of it. I mean, they have a new coach and, maybe one or two more wins they would have made it in. And it's a real shame because I think they would have played anybody they would have played a lot of teams tough.
yeah. I was trying to adjust something on OBS, but yeah, it's gonna be an interesting matchup. The whole thing is hard to pick because there's gonna be some interesting second and third round games. Like usually the podcast, we're before do a preview and then we talk about them after the first weekend. It's gonna be weird that the break is gonna happen, during a lot of the tournament, and we're gonna come back and we'll recap the Elite Eight at that point and look ahead to the Final Four. Um, I know that I don't want people to give away too much of their bracket if they don't want to, but I do. What are teams that I guess that you're most excited for? Maybe thinking that they might make a deep run if we want to sort of pivot it that way, or just one or two things you'd like to talk about, as the tournament as it moves forward. Just for timing, sorry, because I don't. We could talk about this for hours, but just maybe two or three things that you're looking forward to in this tournament, either team wise or game wise. I'll start off with you, Ryan.
so I do have, I guess, an interesting take that will not surprise people, but I actually, um, I actually do think Kentucky will be the team that gets to the Final Four. More interestingly, I think it could be NC State if they're able to beat Kentucky, because that's to me is just like I think that team they've dealt with injuries and not having their full roster kind of come together. They just got who was it? It wasn't Dillingham, but anyway. But so Kentucky is a team that should not be overlooked just because of their past history. And like somebody else had said, they have some older guys now that have a little bit more experience. So and I am just, if you have not seen DJ Burns play, you need to see him play. It's just poetry in motion. He's like one of my favorite players I've ever gotten to watch at the college level. And yeah, you just don't see it. Yeah, so anyway, I guess on like outside of my own like very NC State centric excitement, of course, I am actually thinking it's gonna be, for me, I'm not gonna overthink it, and I think the favorite, Connecticut, I think is gonna get all the way this year. I think it's gonna happen. I think we're gonna have a weird year where the favorite actually does get all the way. But we'll see. We'll see.
Yeah. I'm gonna go to you next, David. What is something that you're looking forward to, and what do you think maybe towards the end is looking like for you?
I'm really looking forward to what UConn's run here. Will they live up to the hype? Because they have been so good. Like they have been a wagon all year long, and it's a very impressive season. But what does it mean when you're in the tournament? We don't know yet. But they're clearly a very very good team, and they I think I do like Hurley. I think he's a very intense coach, but he's also a very good coach. I think he's gonna do a pretty good job with this group. I think it's gonna be a lot of ones and twos. So I have UConn winning the East. I have Arizona winning the West, and that's a particularly notable scenario because this is going to be the final year of the Pac-12 in this tournament. There will be no Pac-12 next year. So, I mean, in my heart, I would love to see Arizona win a title because the Pac-12 has just been so down in the dumps as far as the final. I mean, it's actually winning a title. They haven't won a title since the conference's last conference title was like 97, meaning the last time the Pac-12 won a national championship. That's a long time ago. So I don't know. It'd be nice, but I said
Their
that also
last
during
shot
the.
to do it.
Yeah, definitely. I think this is a really, really good setup for Arizona. If they can take care of business in the first weekend, they're going to be in a good spot. For the South, I have Houston. It's not the sexy pick at all. But Kelvin Sampson is a great coach, and that team is the tough defense. That it's kind of right up there with Virginia over the last few years and how well they play defense. I mean, it's not fun to watch at all, but it is a very, very well managed team. They know what they're doing. And they are tough. And I think that'll be a tough. I don't know. It's gonna be a while before they lose a game. That's pretty much what I'll say. So I definitely like them to make the Final Four here. In the Midwest, that's the tough one. We all have been talking about how hard it is to predict someone to come out of here. I think I will make a sidebar prediction. So first, I'm going to say Kansas is going to come out of there. I don't feel great about that. I'm going to say that all our predictions on who's going to come out of the Midwest are going to be wrong. How do you like that? I think we're all going to get it wrong. I think someone else is going to come out of there, and we didn't see it coming.
Interesting. I could see that.
Who's picked who so far from the Midwest? Like, did you? I forgot what Ryan picked.
Midwest.
Or no, was I first on this? I'm sorry. Was I the first one? I'm sorry.
I don't know if people have said who they picked in the Midwest.
Yeah, I think you're right. I'm sorry. I'm going to go back to you, Robbie.
Yeah, that's fine. I'll go to Arun and get his thoughts overall, and then we can talk a little bit more about it.
Yeah, the Midwest, I didn't really feel good about this region at all because I felt like three teams in the South. I'd rather pick anybody in them in the Midwest, but in the Midwest, I have Creighton winning Midwest, and I didn't feel really good about that. And I don't feel good about Kansas and Purdue, obviously. Like I talked about Purdue, like, oh, maybe they have a Virginia run. And I was like, yeah, they're not going to make it to the Final Four. I was thinking, so, but maybe they'll make it to the Final Four. Not proving everybody wrong. That'll be one of them because I don't think many people are confident in them. And like Ryan, I also have Kentucky going to the championship game, and I have them playing Connecticut. And for now, I have Kentucky winning, but I could flip on that because, like I just like the NBA talent, I guess, on Kentucky, but I don't know if that translates because Connecticut, obviously, they've done it in the tournament, but I feel most confident that out of those, like Connecticut and Kentucky, of those teams will be in the Final Four. But of course, I could be dead wrong. It's March Madness, so.
Yeah, I went back and looked to see where I had been going with it. At least up until now, I still thinking about moving some stuff around. But I have Kansas actually winning that side. Was my thought that they, yeah. So anyway, I definitely thought they had a run, beating Gonzaga and then beating Purdue and then beating Tennessee. Was kind of the thought process I had there, but I'm not sure about that. It'll be interesting. I also have Kentucky beating NC State and that being an interesting matchup, against Houston. I was very torn. I ended up picking Houston, but I've gone back and forth on that one a lot, on the upper side of that bracket. And so, and then I'm just such a homer that I picked UNC over UConn, and I'm just hoping that somehow it happens. But I don't necessarily feel strongly about it. But every time UNC has won it all, I pick them in my bracket, so I'm very superstitious. So I try to find a way. And if it doesn't happen, it doesn't happen. Um, yeah, so in my bracket, though, it's a lot of chalk for sure, in the sense that if we're thinking that three number ones are going to make it, which has happened, but it is pretty rare. I do recognize that. But Ryan, I'll let you give your final thoughts on this as we start to wrap up the segment.
Yeah, sorry. I was a little bit distracted for a second, but I guess the other thing I think we're all looking forward to is, again, what Leon mentioned, is how will Long Beach State perform with their already fired coach against Arizona? I mean, that would be the stuff of legends if there was some miracle way that they could win that game.
Yeah, and welcome to the Leon Lounge, who's in chat with us right now. So I'm happy that Jesse is able to return and talk to us about some college basketball. And we had him back on a couple of weeks ago, obviously with his 49ers. But he said your alma mater is in, so he's rooting for them. Sorry, I may have missed it in chat. So
Long Beach
uh,
State, yeah.
Long Beach State,
The
got it.
LBC, yeah, yeah.
That'd be wild. So yeah, I hope that they do win. That'd be very exciting. One quick stat that I saw about the Capitals. I know that we are still talking about them a little bit, but Ovechkin tonight has now had his 170th multi-goal game, which I just thought was a wild stat that I saw. Second place all time in that statistical category. But just and also number one in road multi-goal games, which I thought was interesting. And he's only behind Wayne by 19 now in multi-goal games in his career. Wayne Gretzky has 189 of those games, so getting closer. He's only the second person ever to break 170. So congrats to him for that achievement tonight. But it's been a wild night for sure. I've been really enjoying this podcast. But Davey, give me some final thoughts before we start to wrap this up.
Yeah, it looks like we got some really interesting teams at the top. We got some real live dogs at the bottom. I do think the middle might be a little bit down compared to past years, though. I just don't really see a lot of, there's some, I mean, we were talking about a lot of teams that were like, oh, their season was a little disappointing. This season is a little disappointing too, but you never know. The moments of March Madness can sometimes bring out the best in everybody. So we are going to certainly be in for some more excitement and lots of upsets as we tend to do every year. But I feel like it's a little bit different this year. I think we're going to have some more chalk than usual in the Final Four, but time will tell.
For sure. All right, and any final thoughts? It's been so cool. Arun and I have done this since the very first year of our podcast. I had him on doing March Madness, and we would have done all 8 seasons, but one season was canceled. So we've done 7 of 8, which is pretty good. But Arun, what are some of your final takes on this bracket?
I think I gave all my thoughts. I'll give my shout out to Villanova and the NIT for playing VCU in the first
Let's
round.
go. Let's go Wildcats.
Nice. Awesome.
What do you
All
think
right.
of the new coach over there at Villanova? Like, it's obviously big shoes to fill.
Yeah, it's a little bit of a downgrade, as it might be an understatement, but he'll work things out. Hopefully, like maybe the next couple of years, get some recruits in, because he was recruiting all these players for Jay Wright. But I think the coaching is still a little bit like they're losing all of the close games. Like they lost a 1-point game to UConn. They beat like Texas Tech by a lot earlier in the season, but they also lost to Penn and St. Joe's,
Mhm.
and they lost to St. Joe's. I knew the season was kind of over because losing to Penn, it's like, oh, they weren't sleeping, but then they immediately lost to St. Joe's after
Oh,
that.
no.
So it's like kind of like, yeah, this is not their year kind of thing.
Yeah, I'm sorry but I am happy that Penn won, because that was like,
Second year in a row that Penn's beaten Villanova too, I think.
Yeah, I know. So, but I won't go too much because that's as far as their season got. But we'll have at least something to be excited about going into next year. But this has been so much fun. You guys are all welcome, obviously, in 2 weeks to recap if you are available as we look into the final March Madness. As you are all welcome to join in on our simulcast for the championship game when they do that, because I believe that they're still doing that on a Monday again, right? It's championship on the 8th. Yeah, it is. So we will have that game live on air, which is kind of cool. We do the football championship simulcast and basketball every season, and it's usually how we start a season. This year we can focus on baseball and a couple of other things, but it should be a lot of fun. You guys are always welcome. Arun, you are also welcome to join me live in studio for the championship game as well. Maybe we'll have Tim over as well. But yeah, David, what are some of your final thoughts?
Congratulations on 8 years. Like, that's a great run for any show. Big time props to Robbie and the crew. Love it.
Pump it
So,
up.
well, I appreciate you guys for being such a cool part of it. And, Ryan, we got to talk hockey and, get to talk March Madness. And so it's been a lot of fun. And Davey, you and I have been on each other's shows a bunch of times through all the last 3 years that we've
Mhm.
been able to be here on Twitch. And I just want to give a special shout out before we end the show. I know I kind of glossed over the hype train at the beginning, which I kind of feel bad about. There was a live hockey game and I had 5 guests on. But I do want to go back through and thank the people, for the hype train at the beginning. Tina French has been one of our biggest supporters over here. She, lives in the DMV. So thank you for the 19-month resub, as well as the bits that she gave as well. And then Champ, obviously, resubbed while he was streaming, which I didn't even see. So thanks to him for 27 months there, which is incredible. And so I really appreciate all of you and Carly and many others. And Ryan, I had given you a shout out last week, but I didn't mention that you had resubbed last week too. And so I thank you for that resub as well. I get to tell you face to face, which is kind of nice. But it's just been a really cool run. I've been very fortunate to get to meet people. I was talking at the beginning of this show. What a cool opportunity. We've had people from California, from Seattle, from Vancouver, from North Carolina, Virginia, and Maryland all get to talk in real time about the sports that we're passionate about. And it's almost like we're in, you're in studio with me, and it's such a cool opportunity. And so thanks to Zoom technology for making that a possibility. But, it's probably the best thing that came out of the pandemic for me is to be able to move it to this kind of a platform instead of it just being a web call-in show, which was great. I loved having fans of sports be able to call in, and we used to talk for 4 or 5 hours, and it was really long streams. But having to be able to face and be able to talk about it is a totally different dynamic, and I really appreciate that we don't have to be a part of the ESPN to be able to do something like this, and we can build the infrastructure here. And it's been really cool that we had Janaea on, who's a podcaster who talks caps that I've always, been a big fan of, and Gil and Anna, who I, love, and Champ has been a part of this network with me, and we're keeping it alive. And I got to give a big shout out to, rest in peace, Jason Terrell. He took a chance on me 8 years ago and put us on a streaming platform that he had set up and made us our Monday show, gave us a producer so that way Carol and I could be the hosts and learn how to do this. And I just, did that for a few weeks. Runa was, one of those first callers. And then we decided to stick a phone on a tripod and just do it through Facebook Live. So that way people who may have a question but don't want to call in, want to get their message across, could ask me questions. And that's where we started. And it's been able to grow and balloon from there. And just gotten to meet so many incredible people. I was talking to LG offline about this. I've been able to interview so many incredible musicians and artists, and talk to so many people, which beyond my love of sports, and show me that I could be a streamer beyond this. And I love talking sports, obviously, but it's really cool to talk about some of the other stuff as well. I am going to quickly end the audio podcast, but then you guys can feel free to stay on or jump off, and then we can talk for a couple additional minutes on Twitch, and then I will raid out as well. But I just wanted to thank everyone for tuning into the audio podcast and for the Facebook Live side of things, and being a part of this for the last 8 years. I am going to stop that there. If you want my final thoughts or some of our earlier thoughts, we had a pre-podcast show. Those clips will be on YouTube tomorrow. The audio podcast will be up next. Actually, I may try to stay up and quickly edit it just because I know people are interested in this today, because they need to make picks quickly. But we'll see how long I stay up since it's already 12:30 here on the East Coast. But I do appreciate everyone for tuning in and being a part of this, whether you listen or you're part of IG or YouTube or any of that. So thank you so much. And we will talk to the Facebook people in 2 weeks, and I hope that you have a good one. And I'm gonna stop that live stream. And yeah, so we are off on Facebook. But I really appreciate and the audio side of it. But I do want to give an opportunity for you guys to give your final take. I was going to mention a couple of additional post stream things. Do you guys have a couple of minutes, or do you guys need to? I can let any of you go. I know it's kind of late at this point for our East Coasters. But do you have a few minutes, Ryan? Or are
I
you?
can hang out.
Yeah. Okay. And Arun, do you need to go?
No, I'm fine.
Okay. I just wanted to at least be fair to you guys because I do know that it is 12:30. But I really appreciate all you guys for being a part of this and all of the Twitch people for watching this. And I took a chance on this on Twitch early on, and it didn't hit the first time, and I wasn't sure it was going to as a sports show on here because it's an international audience. And so I stopped it for like over a year on Twitch. But then meeting you guys, meeting Carly and other people sort of reignited that. I was like, well, maybe now I've got a whole different group of people that I know. Maybe we'll try it again, and who knows? Maybe it'll take off this time. And it did. And I was, I have to say, I'm so happy to have given it a second chance here on Twitch, and it becomes now my favorite platform. Facebook has a lot of issues right now, and it's I keep it there because there's still that core group and that friendship of 8 years. I can't like leave it behind, but man, does Facebook try, to, make me want to leave it behind. So, but I appreciate the people here for, sticking with it and, really making this show in a time period, where without Carol, it's been, tough because I did it as a kind of a thing with him. But it's really nice to have all these other people come and join me and sort of continue that dynamic. And so I really want to thank you both for inspiring me as Twitch streamers to, continue to follow my dream, and Arun for, being a part of it. We've been friends now for over 20 years, and, it's without my core group of friends here. I don't think I would have necessarily even started this show, so I appreciate you for being a part of that as well. I do want to give a little bit. Let me see if I can switch. Let me see. So if I do this, I was curious if I can switch now. Which one? Does this work? Yes, it does. All right. So I want to give you guys a sneak peek for the people that are staying on Twitch for a couple extra minutes. I've been working on this audio thing, and I'm trying to get this video edited by Wednesday. It's taken me months to get it out, and I'm so excited about it though, because it was such an incredible last dive day, but it was so dark and like, rainy that the footage down here was almost like it was at a night dive. But I found out through through some color board correction that I could actually bring light back in artificially into this, through kind of like what you would do with touching up a photo, right? You can add, the balance, and you can adjust, the different colors and things like that. And so I was able to salvage a lot of this incredible footage, and I put it to this really sort of eerie Dan Tremblay track. And then this part right here is exciting. It's sort of a more uplifting tone. And so I just wanted to show people just a couple of little glimpses of what I'm hoping to have released on Wednesday. We're kind of in the final editing stages. I put in some of the titles in. I got to put the final titles in there, but we're getting there. And it was really cool because last week I got to interview Katie, and I'm so excited for her EP this week. And she actually had an awesome stream earlier today with HK that was a lot of fun. That I know that Davey and I were both enjoying. And so I'm just really excited for her and the EP release. And I just had such a fun interview of her last week. So if you missed that, I did do a cut down of that interview down to like the top 15 minutes or so. And people want to check that out, they can do it on Instagram or Facebook, or check out the whole video on my Twitch VODs, also on my YouTube. But I love her song Clean Air. It was always such an important song. It was written about her community. And I know that she's starting a new chapter with this EP, but I really wanted to release this video before that it was, because it's kind of, in my mind, it's, Clean Air was a great song, and it never got sort of, I mean, within her community, it gets the recognition it needs, but never outside of that, got the love of what I feel for that song. And so I was able, with her permission, using AI to extract some of her instrumentals and then mix it into her voice and then mix it with the sounds of the dive. And it makes this really cool part. And so I was going to show a little bit of that part right now. And I'm just so excited for her EP coming out. And so I'm just going to show this part here. Hold on, I just realized something. So to make this sound work, I'm going to have to switch my mic. So give me 1 second. I'm going to mute myself and I'll be right back. All right, can you guys hear me now? I switched my mic to the other area.
Yep.
Cool. So I'm using one
I hear
camera. But anyway, so here we go, and I'm going to show just this part right here, which this is one of the rarest fish I've ever seen on a dive, and so I thought it was really kind of a cool. So anyway, this triggerfish is super rare. It's almost like a Picasso one. It's got this incredible markings on it. It's just a very cool, rare thing. And then, so the end is actually coming out of the instrumental. So if you see here, hold on, I gotta show you this one other part that I love with Dan's track with these amazing French angelfish, which I'm just so proud of this shot. So you go from this sort of light airiness, sort of dark, creepy beginning, light airiness through her music, and then end with Clean Air as you're like breathing and coming to the surface and coming back to reality for what is the last dive of this trip. And that's kind of the end of the story of the video, right? I love these three fish. They're amazing. Here too, but I just want to show you the ending here. I haven't finished this edit because I need to sort of take all of this footage here and fit it into this last part, and then also have credits. So that's sort of my last thing that I have to do. But I love her song here. So this dive site is called the aquarium because there's just so many colorful fish and corals in every direction you look. You don't even really know, where to focus the camera, but it's just this incredible tropical fish coming through. So I'll cut that, trim some of the fat of that and show some of my parents, and then the ascension, maybe a bit of a selfie of me in there. And then it was kind of a cool thing. My wife is such a strong swimmer that she can actually surface dive from the top there, which I thought was pretty impressive, down to me diving. So I thought that was kind of a cool shot. So I might use some of that as well. So those are sort of people have been following along with me making the dive video, and I've kind of been cool this last couple of months to show how it was being made. And I just wanted to give a little bit of an update here at the end of where it is, and I'm hoping over the next couple of days to finish the edit and release it before she releases her EP. But we'll see if that happens. But really awesome opportunity to work with Katie, both in her song and also last week with that interview. So I just wanted to wish her well as part of this stream. She's another person, one of the first music streamers that I kind of followed during that pandemic time. And, through her community, I'm pretty sure is how I met both of you, or at least early on. I know I met Ryan, through, either her community or Josh's. And Davey, I know that I met you through some of the same communities as well. So, it's kind of cool to see where we all are, 3 years later. And it's been quite an interesting run. And so I just want to showcase a little bit of some of that for some people. But yeah, I'll let Davey, any final thoughts before we start to get out of here?
No, I was about to drop off either way, so I just want to say thank you and appreciate the good times and congrats again, and here's just some good metrics for your video. It looks pretty cool.
Thank you. Yeah, I just and it's been a fun journey, to try to, I'm never going to be National Geographic, right? But I think it's kind of cool to be able to take some of my journey and be able to share those moments underwater in a world that so many people rarely get to see. And I've always done shorter form stuff, but it's kind of cool to be able to like put it together and you can watch them as individual clips, but the idea is that eventually you could watch it as a whole like feature length movie, and sort of see the whole series. And I just want to thank all the Twitch musicians that were a part of it. We've had so many continents included, so many countries included. It's just been really amazing to be able to do that and bring people from all over the world together through music and scuba diving. And so it's been cool to feature, Dan and, so many. But I'm so excited that Dan and Katie got to collab and make this EP, and because they're two people that have been very influential to me in different ways, and it's so cool that they have that opportunity. So people should go check that out. I'm going to do a little shout out for Katie as well. So if people want to check out her EP as well. But thank you, Davey, for an incredible 3 years of friendship, and I'm excited to see where this goes next and what sandwich I'll bring on next the next time I come on your show. But as I said earlier, I know the next couple of weeks are busy, but there's always an open invitation to talk college basketball here for you, as you know. And I look forward to a really fun tournament.
Yeah, thanks, and likewise. Good luck to your brackets, everybody.
Yeah, thank
Nice
you.
seeing you all
And,
again.
Ryan, usually we're bitter rivals in most sports, but it was really kind of fun to root your team on and actually support NC State. It's kind of funny because I'll have to tell you, when I was a kid, I was applying to schools. I did apply to NC State,
Yeah.
but they didn't. They were kind of shocked to me that an outsider would want to, and I thought that was a little strange. So I was like, maybe they don't want out of state people so much. So like it was, but I do appreciate the rivalry that over all those years, and I wish you the best. I hope that you guys have a great run. I would love for it to continue, especially because imagine because they're on opposite sides of the bracket. Like, imagine if they were to both go really far.
That'd be crazy.
They would meet the championship, right? Would it be a rematch?
Gosh, oh my gosh, that would be nuts. I was gonna say, one thing that hasn't really been talked about the 5 games in 5 days, um, is where they won those 5 games, which was in in your
Oh
famous
yeah, Cap One
One
Arena. That's
Arena.
true. It was here. I actually, it's so funny. I thought about going to the semifinal of the championship game, but I have family in town, and
Right.
the logistics
Sucks.
weren't there. But the idea crossed my mind a few times, especially when UNC made the championship game. I was like, man, it's just a metro ride away. Like it's I could have just go down there and see it, and so but I wish you the best of luck, and yeah, thank you for coming on this show and being a part of it.
What made it even more impressive, maybe, is that they've won 5 games in 5 days, and it's a hard place to win basketball games, as the Wizards know.
That's
Yeah,
true.
they have
Yeah,
more.
that
NC
is.
State has more wins than the Wizards do this year at Cap One than the Wizards.
Oh no. I believe it. We only have 10 wins, so that doesn't
There's only
surprise.
3 in Cap One, and NC State won 5.
Oh no, it's like not
We're a
even
better
close.
road team, apparently.
We need
That's
Davies oof emotes in the chat for that.
yeah, exactly. That's wild. All right, I'm trying to decide whether who we're gonna raid tonight. I always leave it up to the people that are on the show if they want to do it. I know that we have an ASMR streamer that you're friends with that's on right now, Ryan. I don't think I've ever rated her actually. But do you have a feeling one way or another? I always give them first pick.
Um,
There's also True Paradox is doing a music stream.
it's I feel like it's your 8 years of streaming. I feel like it should be your call. I don't really have. Yeah, I'm gonna let you make that call and see what you would like to do. I mean,
Okay, yeah, I know. It's a lot of my normal players are already off by now. It's already 12:45 here on the East Coast.
yeah,
Which is kind of fun. It means that we could go to somewhere new. I know that most of us are probably gonna go pretty much right to bed. Um, You know what? True Paradox has been such a big supporter of me over the last couple of weeks. And I've never gotten to raid him before. So why don't we do that? I think that would be
sounds
kind
good.
of a fun idea. So let me put the raid in and then sub raid here. And Davey's
Yeah,
back.
yeah. Hi again, Green. Hi again, Green Guy, and everybody. And bye again, everybody. Good to see you all again, though. Bye, Arun.
Yeah.
Bye, Brian. Bye, Rob.
Long time.
Yeah, I know. It's been a bit.
All right, we're gonna go read over to True Paradox, but thank you guys for being a part of this. It's been a lot of fun, and we'll definitely talk more basketball soon.
Sounds good.
All right,
See ya.
bye.